Hi, I'm Claire, and this is BooktubeSFF Babbles / Top 5 Wednesday, the top 5 sci-fi and fantasy books I really want to read right now. BooktubeSFF Babbles is run by the lovely people who also organize the BooktubeSFF Awards, and I will leave a link in the description box below. Top 5 Wednesday is run by Sam over at Thoughts on Tomes, and I will leave a link to the Goodreads group as well if you want to go and check out future topics. The topic for this video was originally given as top 5 sci-fi and fantasy books you want to read, but given that I want to read mostly sci-fi and fantasy books anyway, I will be talking about books that I really want to read now, either because I think they're going to be on awards list, or because I've had them on my TBR for such a long time I really want to get to them, or in the case of number 5, because I have a review copy for the next book in the series, and so I need to catch up, which is why I will shortly be reading Voyage of the Basilisk and In the Labyrinth of Drakes by Marie Brennan. I've been hanging on to these books and kind of not reading them for a little while on purpose because I love this series so much and I didn't want to get to a point where there wasn't any more. But now I have a review copy of the final book, so now I can go through and binge and get some dragon naturalist lady adventures in my eyeballs, which makes me very happy. Next we have Karen Memory by Elizabeth Bear, a rollicking steampunk adventure that is set in a Wild West house of ill repute. And I read the first chapter of this book for the Try a Chapter tag video that I did a while back. I will put a link on a card on the screen right now. And I really enjoyed that chapter, but the language in this book I found a bit difficult to read. It's quite dialect heavy, and so it just took me a while to read when I was reading that first chapter. I do really want to read it. I just need to make it a priority so I can have some long uninterrupted chunk of time to read this book and actually get used to the dialect and the language that is being used to really get into the story. At number 3 is another book that I started for that Try a Chapter tag video I did a while back, and that was Old Man's War by John Scalzi. Now, I've read most of Scalzi's other books apart from the Old Man's War series. I'm currently reading his latest release, The Collapsing Empire, and really enjoying that, but I still haven't read the Old Man's War series. I bought myself a print copy of the first 2 books in the Old Man's War series, which are Old Man's War and The Ghost Brigades, and I bought that last year, put it on my TBR shelf, and every time I make a TBR list I put this on because I really want to get to it, and I don't know, it hasn't happened yet. I really need to read it because I really enjoyed the first chapter when I started it, and I also haven't really found a John Scalzi book that I didn't like in the past, and like I said, I've read I think most of his like standalone novels now, so yes, this is on the docket. At number 2 we have Arabella of Mars by David D. Levine. This is a like steampunk young adult adventure kind of book about a girl called Arabella who, well, clearly lives on Mars and then has to dress as a boy to go on an airship to Earth. This, much like Old Man's War, has been on my TBR shelf ever since I bought it. It's just that every time I go to pick up a new book, there are always review copies to read, or books to read for the podcast, or books to read because I think they're going to be a Hugo nominee pick for me, or because they're on an award list somewhere else. I think as book reviewers we often feel so fortunate that we have so many review copies and that we get to like talk about books and things that we love and people want to hear what we've got to say, that it ends up being difficult remembering that we can just pick things up because we want to read them, and that there doesn't necessarily need to be a rhyme or a reason to it. So this is one of the next things that I will pick up when I'm like, I need to read something that will just make me happy 100%. And finally at number 1 I've got Monstrous by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. This is volume 1, Awakenings, and it is out from Image Comics. It is a graphic novel that I've heard everyone raving about on BookTube, and I cannot wait to just dig into it. It's a little bit longer than your average graphic novel. I need a little bit longer than a regular volume of a graphic novel to be able to read it in one go, which is how I prefer to read graphic novels. But I have a feeling this is going to probably be a finalist for this year's Hugo Awards, and the list comes out in a few days when I'm recording this video, so I will have like a reason for me to read this. I obviously bought it to read ahead of the nomination period closing so I could nominate it if I loved it, but that didn't happen. So if it's on the finalist list, I will definitely have to read it. So that's it. Those were the 5 sci-fi and fantasy things I'm most excited to start reading as soon as I can. Let me know if you have things that you're super excited to start reading. It doesn't necessarily have to be science fiction or fantasy, it could be anything. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check a previous video up here, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button on my face right here for more videos from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.